Hello students, welcome back to computer science class. So up till now we have learned four types of functions. Functions with no arguments and no return values. Functions with no arguments but with return values. Functions with arguments and no return values, and functions with arguments and return values. Now we will learn now whatever we are going to do we have already covered in the last two classes, but I will just teach it to you all once more so that the chapter is officially done. Otherwise the concepts have already been done with you all. Number one is flow of execution. Now flow of execution is basically the order in which the statements of a program are executed. Up till now we were doing sequential flow in which the statements were executed one after the another. Then I took you all and I showed you all the loops, the conditional statements in if and else, and in that if statement would only be executed if the condition was true. So if the condition was not true, some statements used to be skipped at that time. Then we saw the for loop in which a set of statements were repeated continuously for a fixed amount of time. And then we saw the while loop, which was again iteration, that is looping a number of statements, a bunch of statements, unless and until the condition becomes false. So basically, the Python interpreter, it starts the executing the instructions in the program from the first statements, and the statements are executed one by one in the order of appearance from top to bottom. But not every execution needs a display on the screen for the user. Now, what happens when the interpreter encounters a function? Now, whenever the interpreter will encounter a function definition, the statements inside the functions are not executed unless and until the function is called. That means the function execution happens explicitly only when you as a programmer will call for it. Now, when the interpreter encounters the function call, there's a little deviation in the flow of execution. So up till now, it used to keep going straight. But when it encounters a function call, that time what does it do? The control jumps to the called function and it executes the statement of that function. After that, the control comes back to the point of the function call so that the remaining statements in the program can be executed. So we read a program. Whenever you read a program, you should not simply read it from top to bottom. Instead, you should follow the flow of control or execution, and it is important to note that a function must be defined before its call. Now, of course, over here, this is how I have taught you all. We first define the function up. Sometimes you can, in other, uh, programming languages like C++ and even in Java, you could define the program, the function at the end. Means you first call the function and then you define it. But what happened is there's a difference between the execution between the two. Python is an interpreted language. That means each statement is interpreted line by line. So by the time it reaches to the function call, it is going to be like, I don't know which function is this. But if it was Java or C++, if you remember, I had told you all compiler and interpreter, those are compiled languages. That means that particular piece of code is compiled, it is saved, an application code is created. That means those functions, the computer has already read those functions, understood the functions, and then when the function call comes, it can easily jump to that statement because they know it is there in the program. Maybe not on the top, at the bottom, but it is there. But in Python, what happens? You have to define the function before you use the function. Now look at this example. Over here in the first example, there's a function called hello Python open bracket close bracket, but the function definition is after it. In this, you will get an error. It will say that hello Python is not defined. So I don't recognize what you're trying to use. I don't know. So in this you can say, for example, a real life example would be on the spot exams and unit test. In unit test, I tell you, learn the entire chapter one and come. Correct? So I can ask you questions from before, after, in the middle, anywhere. But if I'm taking a test on the spot right now, I taught you this concept and I took a test, then I have to take a test from the concept I taught you right now. I can't take a test from a concept I'm going to teach you tomorrow. Correct? Similarly, in Python, you have to define the functions before you call the function. Okay? Now, you all have understood this error. See over here, they have executed they have given the name of defined the function first and then they have called for it and it works fine. Another homework, write a program using user-defined function that accepts the length and breadth of a rectangle and returns the area and parameter of the rectangle. So in this, over here, I'm taking length and breadth and then I'm calling two functions. Okay, now look here, I'm returning two values over here. I'm returning area and parameter together. That's why I have two variables over here. Okay, let me do this program and show it to you all because there are lots of things we can learn from here. Tuple is just returned over here. A tuple is again something that you have really not done. So you all just understand, a tuple is another data type that is like a list of functions like that. And this is in round brackets. That is how you define a tuple. All right. I'm going to change these alphabets over here so that you can understand it better. That when you get things back, and you all can understand the variable scopes over here also, the local and the global. All right. All right. Right here. This is the function. We have defined a function called calculate area parameter that requires two parameters. It requires length and it requires breadth. And then we go inside, if you pay attention, if this is capital, these all have to be capital. If it's small, everything has to be small. Okay, so then we say area equals to length into breadth. And perimeter equals to 2 into length plus breadth. And then I'm returning area and perimeter both. Now this is a tuple. Tuple is something that you have not done up till now. It's a chapter for the second term. But just understand it's in round brackets separated by a comma. It is returning a tuple value, tuple data type. It goes out. So, and because we are returning two things, I'm going to be saving them in two variables, A and P. And area is A, parameter is P. This is how I'm going to be showing. Let's do this. Enter the length of rectangle, so say 5. Enter the breadth of the rectangle, say 2.5. The area is 12.5, perimeter is 15. All right. Things to note over here. Okay, flow of control, what we just learned. So what happened is it started, it took this, it understood that there is a function over here. So it does not execute all these statements right now. It is directly going to go here. It will execute this, it will execute this. This is the first thing it sees. It knows that it has a function inside. The second thing, it goes here. Third thing, it comes here. And fourth thing over here, it says that these two variables will take value from this function. So when this function is here and we see L and B, and these are the arguments that we are sending to the function. When calc area peri has come, automatically the flow of control has now gone here, and these letters L and B have been converted to length and breadth. Okay, so this is my length and this is my breadth. Now that it is converted, it goes inside, it calculates the area, it calculates perimeter, and finally we return it. Now when we are returning it, it comes back, the flow of control comes back over here, and this area and perimeter finds themselves here. So this becomes area, this becomes perimeter, okay? So this becomes A and P when it comes back here. Over here inside the function, it is area and perimeter. Outside the function, we are using the variables A and P. All right. And finally, we say A equals to this, perimeter equals to this, and you saw the execution and the program was fine. Now, while teaching you this, I just realized one more thing I should teach you all over here. And that is, what if you have two variables with the same name? What happens in that case? All right, so let's say over here, if I have L and B, L and B, L and B, then now this L and B will be different than this L and B because their scope is different. Their scope is different. One is a global scope. Global means कहीं भी use कर सकते हैं. Inside variable, outside variable, वो है ये वाला L and B. और दूसरा है local. Now what happens if a computer encounters a variable that has local scope as well as global scope? That means, let's say, यहाँ पे भी चलो यही लेंथ ब्रेड कर देते हैं. When we are sending also, we will have to change it to. Now, technically, thumb rule of Python, two variables cannot have the same name. And honestly, this rule is more for the programmer than for Python, because Python programs will still run if there are two variables with the same name. But as a programmer, your entire program will completely go off. It'll not give you the output you wish for, because you all will have two variables with the same name and you will never know which variable the Python is taking and making the changes to or display. So let's take it happening over here. I've done length. Over here in this particular program, there will be no difference in the output. What will happen? Let's run it. And it's going to run just absolutely fine. It's going to ask me, I'm going to send the values, and it's going to do it, and it's absolutely fine. Why is that? Okay, that is because this length and breadth and this length and breadth was the same. That means अगर मैंने यहाँ पे L और B भी लिया होता, what happens is when we send the values, it uses this. And inside, now the problem that the Python should have faced was when it came inside over here, and it must have seen that there are two variables. There is one length which is in local, and there is one length that is in the global. So which one will it use? It will always use local first, global second. Now, how do you see it will make a difference over here? I'll do that and show it to you all. Now, let's say I am using length and breadth over here. Okay. Okay. let's say I use L and B over here. Okay. I'm using L and B over here. All right. Now, just to explain to you all this, I'm going to change this. Okay. I am not going to send. I am not going to send the values. I'm going to give the values over here. So I'm just going to say my length is 3 and my breadth is 1.5. Okay. Now, according to me, what will happen is better to explain to you all first. When I have taken length and I have taken breadth from the user and I have saved it in the values length and breadth, when this will be called, it will take those values automatically because it's a global variable according to me. Okay, and this 3 and 1.5 will become L and B, and the perimeter will be calculated according to that. All right, so let's see what will happen. According to me, there should be a little difference in the output. Run module 5 and 2.5. Yeah, can you see the perimeter is different? It was not 15 like always. Area is 12.5. That means for area calculation, it used my length and breadth. And although my length and breadth were not passed as arguments to the function and gone up, still they use length and breadth because inside the function over here, I'm not using L and B. In this particular line over here, I'm using length and breadth, and my length and breadth are here and they are already global variables. So automatically they are used over here without being explicitly called. You understood this? So for this, they used what I gave them. They used 5 into 2.5. But over here, they used 3 and 1.5. Okay, so if you have two variables with the same name, the computer will always use the local one first and then the global one. So if it did not find this length, did not find any length variable inside the function, so it looked for it outside the function. But if I had length and breadth written over here, okay, and I'll tell you how. Okay, now all right, now I'm going to show you all the difference between local and global again. When I'm calling the function, I'm passing the values 3 and 1.5. When I'm taking from the user, I'm saving it in length and breadth, but I'm not forwarding these values to my function. Okay, that means when my function will encounter length and breadth, it will have two sets. It will have this, which will have different value, and it will have this, which will have different value. So let's see which one does my function use. So to the function, I'm saying 5 and 2.5, but my area is 4.5, my perimeter is 9. That means it took these numbers. So if I have to pass these values to my function, I have to write it over here. I have to write length, comma, breadth. Now when I'm going to pass 5 and 2.5, I'm going to get my correct answer. Okay, so please understand local variable and global variable, and a function will always take local variable first, then it will take a global variable in case we have two variables with the same name. But to avoid all this confusion as a programmer, simple trick, don't use same names everywhere. Save yourself the hassle of understanding when what is being used. Just simply use different names so that you don't fall into that entire trap and get wrong outputs. So when I have in my function, I'm using length, breadth, area parameter. Outside, I'm using LB, AP, just so that I am aware of what is happening. All right, is this clear to you all now? All right, we go back to our chapter. All right, so this homework you all will do. Write a program that stimulates a traffic light. The program should consist of the following: a user-defined function called traffic light that accepts input from the user and displays an error message if the user enters anything other than red, yellow, and green. I think this you can do as homework, and without, try and use your own set of codes. Of course, you can take reference from the book, and if you feel book is absolutely correct, do that. But I would prefer if you think first, and of course, if your thinking matches with the book and you do the same thing is secondary. But if you give your own input to this, you will learn better. Okay, so number one, the user, you taking input from the user, and the input is red, green, or yellow. And if the user is entering anything other than that, you're displaying a display message. That is happening in traffic light. Then you have a function called light. The function light is called, and the following is displayed upon, depending upon the return value from light. So if the return value of light is, okay, stop, your life is precious, if the value returned by light is 0. Okay, please wait till the light is green if the value returned by light is 1. Go, thank you for being patient if the value returned by light is 2. So light is returning a number depending on the color the user has entered. If the user has entered red, the value that light is returning is 0. If the user has entered green, the value that light will return is 1. And if the if the user enters yellow, the value that light will return is 1. And if the user enters green, the value that light will enter is 2, 0, 1, or 2. Now a user-defined function light that accepts a string as an input that returns 0 when red, 1 when yellow, 2 when green. And the input should be passed as an argument. Finally, you must display speed, thrills, but kills after the function traffic light is executed. So how have they done? They are saying traffic light, and in this they are taking enter the color of traffic light from the user, and it is saying that if the signal, that is whatever is the input, is not in this list, red, green, yellow, with a comma, you're saying please enter a valid traffic light color in capitals. So again, we are telling the user it has to be only capitals. Otherwise, that means if it is there, then you are saying value, it's another variable, equals to signal, that is whatever the user has given, and light is the name of our function. Now, you cannot have light over here, according to me. Okay, you can have, because this entire thing is in the defined function, defined traffic lights, and then you have defined function. Finally, over here, you're calling for traffic light, and then you're printing speed, thrills, but kills. Okay, so whatever you understand, you do it your way and send it to me. Scope of a variable I discussed with you, it can be global scope or local scope. Please go through it on your own, understand it. There's again a program to explain it to you. Please explain, understand it on your own, because I've done this at least, this is my 3rd time, I've done it with you all in every class, so I don't want to repeat it. We come to standard library. Now Python has a standard library, and standard library is basically a collection of many built-in functions that can be used in the program whenever you require it. So it saves your time, and it creating these functions, it saves your time by, because these are very common functions. So Python has created and given you the license to use it. Now, built-in functions are the ready-made functions in Python. They are frequently used in program. Okay, so in this, for example, integer input. So input is a function, integer is a, changing the data type kind of a function. There should be one more close bracket over here. Okay, print is a function. Input, int, and print are the functions. The set of instructions to be executed for these built-in functions are already defined in the Python interpreter. Okay, now very important, I can give you this kind of a thing and ask you these questions, and you should be able to answer it. Very good interpretation of a function over here. So it is saying that I'm giving you this statement, and it is asking what is the name of the function used in this statement. So the name of the function is input. Does the function accept a value or an argument? Yes, we have written something inside the parenthesis. So because parenthesis consists of a string, it is taking an argument. So the answer is yes. Does the function return a value? Yes, we are using an is equal to before the function over here. We are using an is equal to before the function over here. That means there is an assignment operator. It means that the function will return a value which is stored in this variable name. Understood? So many things you can infer from this one particular line. Now consider the functions int and print. Does the function accept a value or argument? You will write this down on your own. Does the function return a value? Following is a categorized list of some inbuilt functions in Python. So these are different functions that we are using. We will use and you all can use. I have already taught you length, range, type, and there is an ID. Then these are the mathematical functions that can be used: absolute, division modulus, maximum, minimum, power, sum. And these are data conversions. Out of this, we have used int and we have used character also, string also. And these are input output functions that we are using: input to take information from user, print to display on the screen. Now, I want you all to practice these in your script mode of Python, all these. Okay, I'm not going to go through them. Next class, we will learn module, and that will be the last part of this chapter. Okay, with this, I end today's class. Stay home, stay safe, take care, and keep learning. Thank you.